The facts in this case are very simple too. A week after seeing me, the wife called to tell me that her husband refused to file bankruptcy, a very common problem. So they were going to refinance their existing home for an additional $80,000 at 8% over 30 years to pay off $80,000 worth of credit card debt. Real dumb. Okay. I told her their payments would be increased by an additional $587 and change per month. That would total out to $211,327.20 over 30 years. They would not live long enough to pay off the additional mortgage debt because they were in their 60s. They might not be able to make increased mortgage payments because they're limited Social Security money. They would probably be forced to sell their home in the future. Besides, the $80,000 mortgage that they were taking was equity out of the home, which would have been the inheritance of their 2 children in the fullness of time. And the cost of the bankruptcy at that time would have been less than 2 of those additional payments. She then informed me that they had already taken out the loan and they had already paid off the $80,000 of credit card debt. Talk about, wow. Her husband thought this was smart. I then asked her if she had destroyed their credit card. She said no. Guess who I saw 2 years later, after they ran up $90,000 of credit card debt and they were losing their home in foreclosure. Can you imagine $90,000 run up on credit cards in 2 years' time? That's like an extra $45,000 a year income. They live very good until they hit the wall. The point here is, if your spouse refuses to file, you should file individually. Later, when the creditors call, and they will, you can hand the telephone to the non-filing spouse. Then they can file bankruptcy individually. Sorry, that's 2 attorney's fees, 2 filing fees, so what? That's what it takes sometimes. This next case, my client informed me that I had filed his bankruptcy 12 years earlier. Things had gone splendidly for 9 years. Then he ran into health, then financial problems. Then he ran up $66,000 in credit card debt. Instead of calling me, he talked to his best friend, which is obviously the thing to do. And his friend also had a $30,000 credit card problem. So they went and talked to his friend's mother, who was 65 years of age. She said that bankruptcy is evil. Bad things will happen if you file bankruptcy. She then offered to mortgage her fully paid off home to help them with their credit card problems if they promised to make the mortgage payments. She then mortgaged her home for $50,000, paid off her son's credit card debt of $30,000, paid down my client's debt by $20,000, and leaving him with a lowered $46,000 worth of credit card debt. In the next 10 months, her son made 6 of his payments. My client made only 4 of his payments because the $46,000 of credit card debt was killing him. I filed his bankruptcy and listed the $46,000 worth of credit card debt. I also filed the $20,000 owed to Mom, and he said that someday he would get around to paying him. I don't know if he ever did. Obviously, this was not very smart. It was dumb. The point is, do not do dumb things. Do not listen to well-intended relatives and friends. Do smart things, such as seeing your favorite bankruptcy lawyer as soon as possible. The next one here, faced with credit card debt of $100,000 and constant creditor calls, the wife hysterically declared that she could no longer stand it, but she would never file bankruptcy. Heard that before? So they obtained a $60,000 second mortgage on their home and paid the most abusive creditors equally percentage-wise. 4 months later, still receiving telephone calls now, they cashed in $20,000 of the husband's retirement account and paid the $20,000 to the same abusive creditors. 6 months later, unable to borrow any more money or liquidate any other assets, they filed bankruptcy to wipe out the remaining $20,000 of credit card debt. Obviously, this was not very smart. This was beyond dumb. The point, if your spouse refuses to file bankruptcy, you should file bankruptcy individually. Later, when creditors call, hand them the telephone, and then they can go out and file individually. Again, 2 attorney's fees, 2 filing fees. This is sometimes what has to be done. Think, refusing to file bankruptcy to wipe out $100,000, only to file to wipe out $20,000 later, after wiping out $80,000 worth of exempt assets. suggests that one or both of these folks needed a brain surgeon long before they needed a bankruptcy lawyer. This happens all the time. In this case here, a debtor remortgaged the home for $50,000. They paid down their credit cards on purpose, $65,000. Then filed bankruptcy a month later to pay off or to wipe out the 35% that was still left. They did this on purpose because they wanted to be nice. They may have been nice, but they were exceedingly dumb in doing that. They should have just filed bankruptcy, wiped out their credit card debt, and not mortgaged their home. The facts in this case now: after her first appointment, my client went home, completed her bankruptcy information sheets, and just before calling for her next appointment to come in and file, she received a telephone call from a California debt collector who threatened her with a lawsuit if she did not make immediate arrangements to pay over $5,500 on her credit card account. So she promised to make the payments over the next 6 months, and in fact did that. Then she called 6 months later to make her appointment, came in and filed to wipe out the rest. Even if she made the promise to pay them, why didn't she say, I promise I'll have something in the mail to you next week, I'll make those payments, then go see her bankruptcy lawyer? We would have filed and wiped them out, wiped out the promise and the obligation to pay, even though she had said that she would on that telephone. Unbelievable.